The research vessel Dawnlight had been cataloging wildlife on uncharted planets for 3 years without incident. That streak ended when the Vorex hunting clan's ship appeared on their sensors like a bad omen. Owen Reed was in the cargo bay checking on the animal containment units when the alarms started. Not the emergency kind, just the notification that another ship was approaching. He didn't think much of it until Captain De Vries's voice crackled through the intercom. "All hands, we have visitors. Vorex hunting party requesting permission to board. Stay calm and cooperate." Owen felt his stomach drop. He knew about the Vorex. Everyone in frontier space did. They came from a planet where everything was built to kill, and they'd turned that into a cultural identity. Hunting was their religion, their politics, their entire reason for existing, and they didn't like humans much. The docking clamp shook the whole ship. Owen moved toward the bay doors, then stopped. The containment units. He should check the locks. The Vorex had a reputation for being rough with anything they considered beneath them, which was pretty much everything. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. Owen turned to see them entering the cargo bay, and his first thought was that the reports hadn't done them justice. Commander Routh stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms ending in claws that could probably punch through steel. His skin looked like dark leather armor, and his face was all sharp angles and predator teeth. Behind him came 6 more Vorex, each one looking like they could tear a person apart without trying hard. "You are the animal keeper," Routh said. It wasn't a question. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Wildlife handler," Owen corrected, then immediately regretted it. Routh's eyes narrowed. "We come seeking worthy prey. Your vessel carries specimens from death worlds. We will inspect them." "I need to ask the captain first," Owen started, but Routh was already moving past him toward the containment units. "We do not ask permission from prey species," Tilsa said. She was Routh's second, slightly smaller but no less dangerous. "Your captain has already granted access." Owen clenched his jaw. Of course De Vries had. What else could she do? The Vorex hunting clans did whatever they wanted in frontier space, and nobody had the firepower to stop them. Routh examined the containment units, one by one dismissing each with a snort of disgust. "Scavengers, herd animals, nothing worthy." He turned to Owen. "Where do you keep your weapons?" "Weapons locker is on B deck," Owen said carefully. "But I should warn you, some of these animals require specific protocols." Routh laughed, a sound like breaking bones. "Protocols? Your species hides behind tools and rules because you are weak. True hunters need only what nature gave them." He gestured with all 4 arms. "Fang, claw, strength, these are the weapons of worth." 2 of the Vorex hunters left, presumably heading for the weapons locker. Owen felt a spike of anger cut through his fear. "We use tools because we're smart enough to know when we need them." "You use them because you are prey pretending to be predators," Routh said. He moved to the main console and started pressing buttons. Warning lights began flashing across several containment units. "Stop," Owen said sharply. "Those are biocontainment systems. You can't just shut them down." "We can do whatever we wish," Tilsa said. She was watching Owen with what might have been curiosity. "Your objection is noted and ignored." Routh continued working the console, disabling safety systems with casual indifference. Owen watched in growing horror as power levels dropped across the entire bay. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. "You're making a mistake," Owen said. He was trying to stay calm, but his heart was racing. "Some of these animals are dangerous." "To you, perhaps," Routh said. "We are Vorex. We have hunted prey on 17 worlds. We have faced creatures that would make your nightmares seem like pleasant dreams. Nothing on this vessel could threaten us." The other hunters returned carrying armfuls of weapons. Plasma rifles, shock batons, even the captain's sidearm. They dumped them on the floor in a pile. "Pathetic," one of them said. "They have more weapons than warriors, truly a prey species." Routh turned to face Owen fully. "We will remain aboard your vessel until we find something worth hunting. Your specimens are disappointing, but perhaps one of the worlds you visit will provide better sport." Until then, you will submit to our presence." "And if we refuse?" Owen asked, knowing the answer. "Then you become the prey," Ralph said simply. The Vorex began spreading through the ship, claiming spaces for themselves. Tilsa lingered for a moment, looking at Owen with something that might have been pity. "Your captain chose wisely to cooperate," she said. "My people respect strength, and we have found none here. Do not give us reason to demonstrate why we are the apex hunters of known space." She left. Owen stood in the darkened cargo bay, surrounded by failing containment systems and flashing warning lights. His hands were shaking, but not entirely from fear, mostly from rage at his own helplessness. Then he heard it, a low sound from the far corner of the bay. The unit marked with 3 different warning labels and a sign that read, "Do not disturb under any circumstances." The containment chamber for Spite. Owen's blood went cold. The power indicators on that unit were dropping towards 0. He ran to it, pulled up the diagnostics. The climate control was offline. The security locks were disengaging, and inside something was waking up. Through the observation window, Owen saw 2 small eyes open in the darkness. They caught the red emergency light and reflected it back like tiny mirrors. "Oh no," Owen whispered. In the shadows of the containment unit, Spite yawned, showing teeth that didn't belong on an Earth animal. The honey badger stretched, felt the unfamiliar warmth fading, sensed the vibrations of strangers moving through its territory. And it remembered that it hadn't eaten in 6 hours. The lock clicked open. Spite emerged from the containment chamber with the single-minded focus of a creature that had been rudely awakened. The honey badger was barely 2 feet long, covered in coarse black and white fur, with a face that looked permanently annoyed. But the eyes were wrong, too intelligent, too aware. And when it opened its mouth to taste the air, the teeth gleamed with a faint greenish tint that no Earth animal should have. Owen had found Spite 3 years ago on Kepler Station, in a holding facility that had been shut down for illegal genetic experiments. Most of the animals there had been put down as too dangerous or too damaged. But Spite had been just a kit then, small enough to fit in Owen's hands, looking up at him with those strange eyes. The file had been incomplete, but Owen had pieced together what happened. Some idiot scientist had been trying to create the perfect tunnel fighter by combining Earth species with alien traits. Spite was the only survivor of the honey badger trials. The alien DNA came from something called a grinding worm, a creature from a planet where retreat wasn't in the genetic vocabulary. The worms fought until they won or died. There was no middle ground. They'd given that trait to an animal that already didn't know when to quit. Now Spite moved through the cargo bay like a furry shadow, following scent trails the Vorex had left behind. The creature's nose worked overtime, processing information. Strangers, predators, threats. The logical response would be to hide, to wait for the danger to pass. Spite had never been accused of being logical. The ventilation grate came off with barely a sound. Spite squeezed inside, moving through the ductwork with practiced ease. This was its ship. These intruders had woken it up, disrupted its sleep, and filled its territory with their stink. That required correction. On sea deck, a Vorex hunter named Gret was examining the ship's medical bay with contempt. Humans and their obsession with healing. True warriors bore their scars with pride. He was about to leave when he heard a scratching sound above him. Gret looked up at the ventilation grate, just as something small and fast dropped onto his face. He screamed, which would have embarrassed him if any of his clanmates had been there to hear it. Claws raked across his eyes. Teeth sank into his shoulder, and there was a burning sensation that spread like fire through his veins. Gret grabbed at the creature with all 4 arms, but it twisted in his grip, its loose skin allowing it to turn and bite his hand. The pain was incredible. Gret threw the creature across the room and drew his blade, ready to kill this tiny demon. But when he blinked the blood from his eyes, it was gone. Just a smear of acidic saliva on the floor and the echo of something moving through the walls. Gret activated his comm. "Commander Ralph, we have a problem." Elsewhere on the ship, 2 more Vorex were discovering the same thing. One was dragged screaming into a maintenance tunnel by something that hit like a truck despite being the size of a small dog. The other found claw marks on the wall outside his claimed quarters, marks that went deep into the metal. Ralph stood in what had been the captain's ready room, listening to the reports with growing irritation. One small creature is causing this much trouble, find it and kill it. Commander, Tilsa said carefully. She was reviewing something on her data pad. The human. Owen, he tried to warn us about containment protocols. Humans are always warning about something, Ralph growled. It is how prey species survive, constant fear. Perhaps, but 3 of our hunters are injured. One is missing entirely. She paused. I am attempting to access the ship's database on their specimens. Ralph waved a dismissive hand and turned back to the window. Below, he could see the human crew gathered in the mess hall, confined there by his orders. They looked scared. Good. Fear was the natural state of prey. His comm crackled. Another hunter reporting an attack. This time there were 4 of them together, and the creature had still managed to injure 2 before vanishing into the air ducts. Ralph felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Not fear exactly. The Vorex didn't do fear, but uncertainty. How could something so small be this effective? Found it, Tilsa said. She was staring at her screen with an expression Ralph couldn't quite read. The creature is called a honey badger, Earth origin, mustelid family, enhanced with genetic material from a grinding worm. Show me, Ralph commanded. The image that appeared on the screen showed a small, stocky animal that looked utterly unimpressive. Ralph laughed. This is what has injured our hunters. Tilsa scrolled through the data. According to this file, honey badgers are known for extreme aggression, resistance to venom, and pain tolerance that borders on supernatural. They have thick, loose skin that makes them difficult to grip. They fight prey much larger than themselves and rarely retreat. She looked up. The grinding worm DNA appears to have amplified these traits. Plus it added acidic saliva that causes severe tissue damage. 1 creature, Ralph said slowly. How much damage can 1 creature do? As if in answer, the lights in the ready room flickered, then went out entirely. Emergency power kicked in after a moment, but Ralph heard screaming from somewhere on B deck. Owen's voice came through the ship-wide intercom. The human must have convinced someone to let him access it. Commander Ralph, this is your last warning. Return to your ship. You woke something you don't understand, and it won't stop until it considers the threat eliminated. That means all of you. We do not flee from prey, Ralph snarled at the nearest comm panel. Spite isn't prey, Owen said, and there was something in his voice that made Ralph pause, not fear, something else. Recognition, maybe, or respect. Spite is what Earth creates when it wants something dead, and right now that something is you. The comm went silent. Tilsa looked at her commander. Your orders. Ralph's pride warred with his tactical sense. They were hunters, the best in known space. But the ship had become a maze of shadows and ventilation ducts, and somewhere in that maze was something that didn't know it was supposed to lose. Gather the hunters, Ralph said finally. We end this now. In the darkness of the ventilation system, Spite paused in its patrol. It could smell them gathering, organizing, preparing. Good. The creature's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile if honey badgers did such things. Let them come. Spite was just getting warmed up. Ralph organized his remaining hunters on the main deck, forming them into pairs. Standard pack tactics for dangerous prey. What worked on their homeworld should work here. It had to work here. The alternative was admitting that a creature smaller than their young had bested them, and that was unacceptable. It uses the ventilation system, Ralph explained, pointing at the schematics Tilsa had pulled up. We seal sections and flush it out into open areas where we have the advantage. Commander, one of the hunters said. His name was Vorl, and he had 3 long scratches across his chest that were still burning from the acidic saliva. This creature fights like nothing I have encountered. It does not flee, it does not hesitate, and it seems to feel no pain. Then we will teach it pain, Ralph growled. Move out. They split into groups of 4, each taking a different section of the ship. Ralph's group headed for the engineering deck where 2 hunters had gone missing. The corridors here were narrower, filled with pipes and conduits. Not ideal terrain, but they would adapt. That's when Spite hit them. The creature came from above, dropping from a ceiling panel onto the last hunter in line. Claws found the soft spots between armor plates. Teeth sank into the base of the neck. The Vorex roared and spun, trying to dislodge the attacker, but Spite held on with the grip of something that had evolved to fight venomous snakes. The other 3 hunters turned to help. Ralph grabbed Spite with 2 hands, finally getting a solid grip. The creature twisted in his grasp, its loose skin bunching up, and suddenly it was facing him with its teeth bared. Ralph tightened his grip, expecting the creature to panic. Instead, Spite bit his hand. The pain was immediate and searing. Ralph's hand went numb, then started burning like he dipped it in acid. He threw Spite against the wall hard enough to dent the metal. The creature bounced off, hit the floor, and Ralph expected it to be stunned at least. Spite shook itself once and charged directly at the nearest Vorex. "What is wrong with this thing?" Vorl shouted, trying to keep a pipe between himself and the small fury of teeth and claws. Tilsa's voice came through their comms. "I have been reading the Earth database entries on honey badgers. Commander, they have no fear response. None. They attack lions, buffalo, even vehicles. Size means nothing to them." "Everything has fear," Ralph snarled, cradling his injured hand. Blood mixed with something green was dripping onto the deck. "Not this," Tilsa said, and her voice had an edge that Ralph had never heard before. "Not honey badgers, and certainly not one with grinding worm DNA. Those creatures are biologically incapable of retreat. The human's file says Spite was rejected from 3 different facilities because it kept attacking things that should have killed it." Ralph watched Spite duck under a hunter's grab, latch onto the Vorex's leg, and start climbing. The hunter was screaming, trying to shake the creature off, but Spite climbed like the hunter's leg was a tree and there was food at the top. "Fall back," Ralph ordered. It tasted like defeat in his mouth, but tactical withdrawal was different from fleeing. He kept telling himself that as they retreated to the main deck, sealing bulkheads behind them. Spite didn't follow. That was somehow worse. It meant the creature had claimed the engineering deck as its territory and was satisfied with that victory. For now. Owen was waiting when they emerged. He'd somehow convinced the guards to let him out of the mess hall, or more likely he'd just walked out and they hadn't stopped him. The human looked tired and angry in equal measure. "I tried to warn you," Owen said. "Explain this creature," Ralph demanded. His hand was wrapped in emergency bandaging, but it still felt like it was on fire. Owen sighed. "What do you want to know?" "Why does it not flee? Why does it not fear death?" "Because it's a honey badger," Owen said, like that explained. "Everything. They are one of the few animals on Earth that will fight anything. Size doesn't matter. Danger doesn't matter. They've been recorded attacking crocodiles, leopards, even elephants. Not to eat them or defend territory, just because they got annoyed." Ralph stared at him. "That is insane." "Yeah," Owen agreed. "That's what makes them badgers. Now imagine someone took that and added DNA from a grinding worm. You know what grinding worms do, right? They tunnel through rock. They never surface until their prey is dead or they are. Right, no retreat instinct, just forward until something dies." Owen gestured at the sealed bulkhead. "You combined those 2 things in Spite. Congratulations, you created the galaxy's angriest fusion of determination and stupidity." Tilsa was tending to the wounded hunters. 3 of them had burns from the acidic saliva. 2 had deep lacerations. 1 was missing chunks of armor where Spite had simply chewed through it. "How do we kill it?" Ralph asked. Owen's expression went cold. "You don't. We are Vorex. We have hunted across 17 worlds. And I'm telling you, you picked the wrong fight." Owen stepped closer, and despite being half Ralph's size, the human didn't look afraid. "Spite bonded with me when it was a kit. I'm probably the only living thing it won't attack on sight. You want this to end, you give me back our weapons, you return to your ship, and you leave. Otherwise, spite will keep hunting you until every single one of you is off this vessel or dead. We do not surrender to prey, Ralph said automatically. This isn't surrender, this is survival. Owen pointed at Ralph's bandaged hand. That burning you feel, that's going to get worse. Spite's saliva breaks down tissue. You need treatment from our medical bay, which means you need our cooperation, and you need to understand something about humans. What? We don't bond with safe animals. We bond with the dangerous ones. Wolves, big cats, bears. We look at creatures that could kill us and decide to make them family. You dismissed us as prey species because we use tools. But we use tools because we're smart enough to know that sometimes the scariest thing in the room is small, furry, and absolutely refuses to die. An alarm blared. One of the hunters on B deck was screaming through the comm. Spite had found another victim. Ralph looked at his remaining warriors. They were injured. Scared and losing respect for his leadership with every passing minute. He looked at the human, who stood there with certainty in his eyes. Finally, Ralph looked at his own pride and found it wasn't worth dying for. We will discuss terms, he said. Dr. Yuki Tanaka arrived in the conference room carrying a data pad and looking like she hadn't slept in days. She probably hadn't. The ship's xenobiologist had been treating Vorek's injuries for hours, and her patience was clearly wearing thin. Sit, she told Ralph, pointing at a chair. The Vorek's commander bristled at being ordered around by a human, but his hand was getting worse. The burning had spread up his arm, and the skin was turning an ugly shade of purple. He sat. Yuki scanned his hand with a medical device, frowned, and started applying a gel that smelled terrible but immediately cooled the burning. You're lucky, she said. Another hour and the tissue damage would have been permanent. The acidic compounds in that animal's saliva are designed to break down proteins, very effective against tough hides and armor. Designed, Tilsa repeated. She was standing behind Ralph, watching everything with sharp eyes. You said designed, this was intentional. The base honey badger comes equipped with some nasty defensive capabilities, Yuki explained, wrapping Ralph's hand. Thick skin, high pain tolerance, incredible tenacity, but someone enhanced spite with grinding worm DNA. Those creatures have acidic enzymes that help them tunnel through rock. Mix that with mammalian biochemistry, and you get a bite that can melt through most organic materials. Ralph felt sick. What kind of scientist creates such a thing? The illegal kind, Owen said from the doorway. The kind that got shut down and had their research confiscated. Spite was supposed to be euthanized along with the other test subjects. I couldn't let that happen. So you kept an abomination as a pet, Ralph said. I kept a living being that deserved a chance, Owen corrected. And Spite isn't a pet, more like a very dangerous roommate who occasionally tolerates my presence. Yuki finished with Ralph's hand and moved to the next injured Vorex. I need to explain something about Earth biology. Our planet is what you'd call a death world, but not in the way you think. We don't have the biggest predators or the strongest prey. What we have is diversity, millions of years of evolution, creating solutions to every possible problem. She pulled up an image on the wall screen. It showed Earth with various animals highlighted. Honey badgers are mustelids. The family includes weasels, otters, wolverines. All of them are known for fighting way above their weight class. The wolverine can drive bears away from kills. The weasel can take down rabbits 10 times its size. And the honey badger attacks anything that annoys it. Why? Tilsa asked. She seemed genuinely curious. What evolutionary advantage does reckless aggression provide? It makes everything else decide you're not worth the trouble, Yuki said. A lion can kill a honey badger, sure, but the badger will hurt the lion badly enough that the lion might not survive its next hunt. So the lion learns to avoid badgers. The badger wins by making the cost too high. Ralph was beginning to understand. It is a strategy of mutually assured damage. Exactly, and in Spite's case, you've got that strategy combined with an inability to retreat programmed at the genetic level. The grinding worm genes don't just provide the acid. They provide the mindset. Attack until you win or you die. No middle ground. Another Vorex limped in, holding his side. Yuki sighed and gestured for him to sit. The injuries were adding up. 8 Vorex wounded, 2 missing and probably dead, all from one creature that weighed maybe 20 pounds. "How do you live with such a thing?" Ralph asked Owen. Owen shrugged. "Carefully. Spite has a routine. Feeding times, exercise periods, enrichment activities. As long as nothing disrupts that routine, everything's fine. But you disrupted it. You turned off the climate control in Spite's habitat, changed the temperature, woke the creature up early. Then you filled the ship with strangers who smell like predators." "We are predators," Ralph said. "Yeah, and Spite knows that, which means Spite has decided you're a threat that needs to be eliminated." Owen sat down across from Ralph. "Here's what you need to understand about humans and dangerous animals. We don't tame them, we negotiate. We offer food, shelter, safety. In return, they tolerate our presence. Sometimes they even protect us. But it's always a negotiation, never submission." Tilsa was reading something on her data pad. "There are records here of humans living with wolves, sharing their food. Later, those wolves became dogs. Is this true?" "Absolutely, Yuki said. Dogs, cats, horses, cattle. We've partnered with dozens of species. We look at something wild and dangerous and think, what if we were friends instead of enemies?" "That is insane," Ralph muttered. "That's humanity," Owen said. "We weaponize friendship, the dog that alerts us to danger, the cat that kills the vermin in our grain stores, the horse that carries us into battle. We don't conquer nature, we make deals with it." An alarm sounded. Another hunter was under attack on C deck. Through the intercom, they could hear snarling and screaming, then silence. Ralph stood, his bandaged hand forgotten. "This cannot continue. We are Vorex. We do not hide from prey. I will face this creature myself and end it with my own claws." "You'll die," Owen said flatly. "Then I die with honor." "There's no honor in stupidity," Yuki said. She was packing up her medical supplies with sharp, angry movements. "You came onto our ship. You disabled our safety systems. You woke up an animal that was perfectly content until you bothered it. And now you want to kill it because it had the audacity to defend itself." Ralph had no answer to that. Tilsa stepped forward. "Commander, perhaps we should consider the humans' suggestion. Return their weapons, leave the ship. This is not a hunt anymore. This is a war we cannot win." "We are Vorex," Ralph said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We are alive," Tilsa countered. "For now. But if we continue this path, that creature will kill us all. It has no fear, no hesitation, and it knows this ship better than we do. We are hunting in its territory by its rules." Ralph looked around the room, at his injured warriors, at the humans who watched with a mixture of pity and exhaustion, at his own bandaged hand. "I will not flee," he said finally. "But I will fight with strategy instead of pride. Owen Reed, you say you can control this creature." "I said I can negotiate with it. That's different." "Then negotiate. Stop the attacks. In return, we will discuss leaving your vessel." Ralph paused. "After I have faced this Spite myself, I must know what kind of warrior defeats the Vorex." Owen closed his eyes and sighed. "You really are going to make this difficult, aren't you?" From somewhere in the ventilation system came a sound like chattering, almost like laughter. Spite was listening and waiting. Ralph chose the cargo bay for the confrontation. Open space, good. Visibility, multiple exits. He brought his 6 best remaining hunters, all of them injured but functional. They formed a semicircle around the entrance to the ventilation system where Spite had claimed the weapons locker as its den. Owen stood to the side with Captain DeVries and Yuki. He tried 3 more times to talk Ralph out of this, but the Vorex commander was committed to his course of action. Pride or stupidity, Owen couldn't tell which. Probably both. "This is a terrible idea," Captain DeVries muttered. "I know," Owen said. "That thing is going to hurt them badly." "I know. And you can't stop it." Owen looked at her. "I could try, but honestly they earned this. Maybe getting their tails kicked by a 20-pound mammal will teach them something about humility." Or it'll make them angry enough to destroy the ship looking for revenge, De Vries said. Owen hadn't considered that. He activated his calm. Ralph, last chance, you can still walk away. I am Vorex, Ralph called back. I do not walk away. Tilsa, who was watching from the upper catwalk with the wounded hunters, shook her head slowly. She knew this was foolish, but she also knew her commander would never back down now. Too many warriors were watching. Ralph activated a device on his belt. It emitted a high-pitched sound that made the humans wince. A challenge call, he explained. Used on my homeworld to draw out worthy prey. If this creature has any predator instinct at all, it will answer. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the ventilation grate exploded outward, and Spite emerged like a furry missile. The honey badger didn't hesitate, didn't assess the situation. It just charged directly at the largest target, which happened to be Ralph. The Vorex commander swung with all four arms, but Spite ducked under the blows with surprising grace. Then it was on him, climbing up his leg with claws that found every gap in his armor. Ralph grabbed Spite with two hands, finally getting a solid grip on the creature's body. This time he was ready for the loose skin trick. He held tight, keeping Spite at arm's length. The honey badger twisted and snarled, trying to reach him with its teeth. Now, Ralph commanded. The other 6 hunters closed in, weapons ready. Not energy weapons or projectiles, those would be dishonorable, just blades and natural weapons. They would overwhelm the creature with numbers and end this. Spite seemed to realize it was outnumbered. A reasonable creature would have panicked. Spite went absolutely berserk. The honey badger twisted with such violence that Ralph lost his grip. Spite dropped to the floor, spun, and latched onto the nearest hunter's ankle. Teeth sank in, acidic saliva started burning, and the Vorex went down screaming. Spite didn't let go, just chewed deeper, ignoring the blows raining down on its body. 2 hunters grabbed Spite and pulled. The creature finally released but immediately attacked their hands, biting and clawing with mechanical efficiency. No wasted movement. Every attack targeted joints, tendons, soft tissue. Ralph dove back into the fight, tackling Spite against the wall. The impact should have stunned the creature. Instead, Spite used the wall as a springboard, launching itself at another hunter's face. Claws raked across eyes. Teeth found a throat. It fights like it's dying, one of the hunters gasped, backing away. His chest was torn open, blood mixing with the acidic burns. It fights like it's already dead, Tilsa corrected from above. She was recording everything, documenting the impossible. A creature smaller than a Vorex infant was systematically destroying trained warriors. Spite dropped from the hunter's throat and landed running. It circled the group, moving too fast for them to coordinate. When one hunter got too close, Spite would dart in, bite, and retreat before they could counter. When they tried to corner it, the honey badger would attack directly into the corner, scattering them with pure aggression. Ralph was bleeding from a dozen wounds. His earlier injury had torn open and the acidic burns were spreading. But he was also learning. The creature was small, fast, and fearless, but it was still mortal. It could be hurt. It was limping slightly from one of the earlier impacts. He waited for his moment. When Spite charged again, Ralph didn't try to grab it. He used 2 hands to deflect while the other 2 grabbed a cargo net from the nearby supplies. As Spite passed beneath him, Ralph threw the net. The honey badger went down in a tangle of mesh. It thrashed and bit at the restraints, but for the first time it was contained. Ralph moved in, blade raised. This was it. The killing blow, proof that the Vorex were superior. He looked down at Spite, expecting to see fear or submission. The honey badger looked back with absolute hatred. And zero hesitation. Even trapped, even facing death, the creature was still trying to attack. Its teeth had already chewed through part of the net. Ralph raised his blade higher and realized his hand was shaking. Not from fear, from respect. This tiny creature had more fighting spirit than most warriors twice his size. Killing it now felt like destroying something precious and rare. A dart hit him in the neck. Ralph spun to see Owen holding a tranquilizer gun, one of the weapons the Vorex had missed in their earlier sweep. The human had a second dart loaded and aimed at Spite. "Drop the blade," Owen said calmly. "You dare?" Ralph's vision was already getting blurry. The tranquilizer was working fast. "Yeah, I dare, because unlike you, I'm smart enough to know when to use tools instead of my fists." Owen fired the second dart. It hit Spite in the shoulder, and the honey badger's thrashing slowed, then stopped. Ralph fell to his knees, then to his side. The last thing he heard before unconsciousness took him was Owen's voice, quiet but firm. "You wanted to know what makes humans different? This is it. We don't prove we're strong by fighting everything. We prove we're smart by knowing when not to fight. And we survived our death world not by being the biggest predators, but by being clever enough to avoid unnecessary battles." The cargo bay went dark. Ralph woke up in the medical bay with a splitting headache and the taste of shame in his mouth. Tilsa was sitting beside his bed, and her expression told him everything he needed to know. They had lost, not just the fight, but the entire encounter. "How many?" he asked. "3 dead, 7 seriously wounded. The rest are functional but need treatment." Tilsa gestured at her own bandaged arm. "The human doctor has been working on us for 6 hours. They could have let us die. They chose not to." Ralph sat up slowly. His body ached in places he didn't know could ache. "Where is the creature?" "In recovery. Apparently it injured itself fighting us. The human Owen is with it now." Ralph stood despite Tilsa's protest. He had to see this, had to understand what kind of being could defeat the Vorex so thoroughly. He found Owen in a smaller medical room, sitting beside a containment unit where Spite was sleeping off the tranquilizer. The honey badger looked different when it wasn't trying to kill something, almost peaceful if you ignored the scars and the slight green tint to its fur from the alien DNA. Owen was checking the creature's injuries with gentle hands. "It bit through a cargo net," Owen said without looking up. "Cracked 2 teeth doing it. I tried to tell you badgers don't give up." "I apologize," Ralph said. The words felt foreign in his mouth. Vorex didn't apologize, but then Vorex didn't usually get beaten by creatures they could step on. Owen glanced at him. "For what? Coming onto our ship, disabling our systems, nearly getting your entire crew killed. You'll have to be more specific." "For underestimating you and your species." That made Owen pause. He put down his medical scanner and turned to face Ralph properly. "You want to know the truth? Humans aren't special. We're not the strongest or the fastest. Our homeworld isn't even the harshest. But we survived because we learned to work together, with each other, with animals, even with our enemies when it made sense." "You bond with creatures that could kill you," Ralph said, looking at Spite. "We bond with everything," Owen corrected. "It's kind of our thing. We look at the universe and see potential allies instead of automatic threats. Sometimes that gets us killed. Sometimes it makes us stronger than we have any right to be." Spite started to stir, making small, grumbling sounds. Owen immediately pulled out a container of treats from his pocket. When the honey badger's eyes opened, they were still full of that familiar aggression, but it faded when Spite saw Owen. "Hey there, you ridiculous little nightmare," Owen said softly, offering a treat through the containment field. Spite took it, chewed aggressively, and immediately demanded another one. Ralph watched in fascination. "It trusts you. We have an understanding. I keep it fed and safe. It tolerates my existence and occasionally doesn't attack me." Owen smiled. "That's about as close to friendship as you get with a honey badger." Captain de Vries appeared in the doorway, Tilsa behind her. "Commander Ralph, your ship is ready to depart. We've transferred all your wounded and returned your equipment. I trust we won't have any more issues." Ralph bowed his head, a gesture of respect among his people. "You will not. The Vorex hunting clan acknowledges our error. We came seeking prey and found warriors instead." "You found scientists and handlers who really just wanted to be left alone," de Vries corrected. "But I appreciate the sentiment." Tilsa stepped forward, holding a data pad. "Commander, I have prepared a report for the Clan Council. I recommend it include full documentation of this encounter and a warning about human capabilities." "Do it," Ralph said. He looked at Owen. What you said earlier about your world making you clever instead of strong, I understand now. Your species weaponizes everything. Knowledge, tools, even friendship with dangerous animals. That is more terrifying than any physical strength. Owen shrugged. We just adapt, it's what we do. You Vorex evolved to be perfect hunters on your world. We evolved to survive on ours, different solutions to different problems. Spite finished the treats and immediately tried to attack the containment field. Owen sighed and pulled out more treats. The honey badger accepted them, still glaring at everyone in the room except Owen. One question, Ralph said. How did you know the tranquilizer would work? What if it had failed? Then I would have improvised, Owen said. That's another human thing. We're really good at improvising. The Vorex delegation left through the main airlock. As they crossed to their ship, Ralph paused and looked back at the dawnlight. Somewhere in that vessel was a creature barely 2 feet long that had humiliated his entire hunting party. And somewhere was a species that looked at that creature and decided to make it family. He understood now why humans were spreading through the galaxy despite their physical weakness. They didn't need to be strong when they were clever enough to turn everything into an advantage. Tilsa, he said as they entered their ship, add a note to that report. Humans are not prey species. Classification should be updated to opportunistic pack predators with tool-using capability and extreme bonding behavior. That will cause problems with the Council, Tilsa warned. Many clans still view humans as inferior. Then those clans should visit the Dawnlight and meet Spite, Ralph said. I suspect they would learn the same lesson we did, the hard way. Their ship undocked and jumped to hyperspace. Ralph went to his quarters to tend his injuries and his wounded pride. He would heal, his warriors would heal, but the lesson would remain. On the Dawnlight, Owen finally got Spite settled back into its repaired containment unit. The honey badger circled 3 times, checked every corner for threats, and finally curled up to sleep, but not before giving Owen one last look that clearly said, "Wake me up early again and we'll have words." Noted, Owen said. Captain de Vries appeared beside him, holding 2 containers of coffee. She handed one to Owen. The ship's secure, all systems restored, and I've updated our first contact protocols to include a new section titled Things Not to Do Around the Animals. Good idea, Owen said. They stood in silence for a moment, watching Spite sleep. You know what the funny thing is? De Vries said. The Vorex came here looking for the most dangerous predator on the ship, and they found it. They just didn't expect it to be the size of a house cat. Owen smiled. Earth doesn't do big scary monsters. We do small things with really bad attitudes. Humanity in a nutshell, De Vries agreed. Spite's ear twitched in its sleep, already dreaming of the next thing it would attack. The ship jumped to hyperspace, continuing its mission among the stars. And in the official logs, Captain de Vries made one final entry. Note for future reference. When dealing with apex predators from death worlds, always remember that Earth's most dangerous export isn't our technology or our warriors. It's our absolute refusal to acknowledge when we're outmatched. We learned it from creatures like honey badgers, and apparently the galaxy wasn't ready for that lesson.